What's up, YouTube? It's time for a review of the new Avenged Sevenfold record, The Stage, out last Friday, October 28th. So we essentially got Beyonce with this one. I guess Avenged are the first major hard rock or metal band to do the whole drop a record out of nowhere thing. I, for one, love the approach. As a fan, it just lets you take in and judge the music without any preconceptions or any of that PR noise. I mean, just think back to the band's last record, Hail to the King. They did like 6 months of interviews before and after the record came out, talking about, we stripped down our sound and took it back to Zeppelin and Sabbath and our heroes, and it almost felt like they were like over-explaining themselves, In terms of Hail to the King as an album, they did execute that goal well. They made an album that was more minimal and relied on basic song structures and simple anthemic riffs and did away with all that off-the-wall experimentation that Avenged have been known for literally since day one. I liked the record, but there was definitely something sorely absent from it. You could point to intricacy or balls-out tempos or that tongue-in-cheek sense of humor, but ultimately it was something kind of intangible for me. I just didn't get the excitement that I usually get out of an Avenged record. But what's great is this time around, not only did I have no idea what to expect, I had very little time to even think about it because they dropped a single out of nowhere and then a couple weeks later, boom, the album showed up. Since then, I've given myself a week to kind of just digest it and live with it a bit. I do not agree with people just chucking up reviews a day or two later. Especially given the nature of this album, there's so much going on and so much to unpack. It really is the polar opposite of Hail to the King in that sense. But now that I've kind of got a grasp on it and I've really spent a lot of time with it, let's unpack it. Believe it or not, the most important thing to discuss about The Stage is actually its lyrical themes. Now, all you motherfuckers reviewing this thing are wrong because this is not a concept album in literal sense. There's no singular narrative being woven through it, but it is extremely concept driven. Much of the album, particularly on the first half, dives headfirst into the very sobering issue of artificial intelligence. More specifically, where this technology could take our society in the future and how it could go horribly awry. M. Shadows noted on Chris Jericho's podcast, this is the first time the band are really using their cultural microphone, as he put it, to kind of speak on a hot button issue. Lyrically, a bunch of these songs are these really thought-provoking, almost cautionary tales that paint a vivid picture of the potential consequences that could come about from humans essentially getting too advanced for our own good. It's like Avenged are making their version of George Orwell's 1984 or Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. And let me tell you, when I compare this record to those two classic novels, I fucking mean it. These lyrics blew me away. Take, for instance, the song Paradigm. This one speaks from the first-person perspective of a human being who has utilized this technology to either become more powerful or to physically live longer. You can kind of look at these lyrics either way. But what happens is he becomes disturbed and distraught by how this technology has essentially made him godlike, but it has taken his very humanness. He asks himself, have I lost that boy inside? And progresses down this rabbit hole until he reaches the most gut-wrenching lyrics on the whole song. I have to question if these thoughts are mine. To live forever, but did something in me die? I'm clawing my skin, but I can't feel it inside. I know the agony of pain would hurt so much better. Essentially, he realizes that he would have just been better off being the human being that he was meant to be, imperfections and all, but it's almost too late to go back. It's a heartbreaking realization. Creating God is another track that plainly addresses this issue. We're creating God, unsure of what we'll find. No need to explain that one. That's clear as day. I especially love the second verse in this song where M. Shadows takes on the perspective of, I guess, like a decision maker in the near future and says, never held a high regard for Darwin, Charles Darwin, of course. Selection takes too long, referring to Darwin's famous evolutionary principle of natural selection. A little kick in the pool shouldn't do us wrong. And he delivers these lyrics in such an eerie tone. It creates this kind of unease, as this topic should. The last line of the song makes perhaps the boldest statement when it says, we're creating God committing suicide, insinuating that essentially if mankind is not careful with this shit, we're gonna fucking destroy ourselves. So this theme of artificial intelligence is an incredibly compelling theme that runs through much of the record, but there's a bunch of tracks, especially on the second half, that hit on different issues that are kind of related but are definitely worth distinguishing, like the track Simulation, which is it's based on this mindfuck concept, which unfortunately I don't smoke weed, and I think smoking weed would really help me explain it and understand it a little better. But it's basically the concept put forth by guys like Elon Musk that there's a very strong possibility that another society has become so advanced that we're actually just living in a simulation created by them. Because if you look at virtual reality, eventually virtual reality becomes so complex and so detailed that it's almost impossible to distinguish from real reality. It's as absurd as that sounds. That's a theory that's actually taken pretty seriously by some scientists, and it's just fucking mind-blowing. And in this song, basically what happens is this Truman Show type thing where a human being realizes that he's in this simulation and needs to be sedated. It's a really cool concept for a song, and it kind of brought to mind Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime with the doctors and the whole thing. And then there's the epic 15-minute closer Exist, which is supposedly a musical retelling of the Big Bang. But of course what's most notable about this song is the guest appearance from Neil deGrasse Tyson, who closes out the album with this wonderful narration that addresses space exploration and the future of humanity and beautifully ties up the loose concept of this album. This shit made me fucking cry when I first heard it. I was moved, I was inspired, I was a little taken aback. It's the most powerful moment on an Avenged Sevenfold song yet. So, how do all these weighty lyrical themes manifest themselves musically? Well, fittingly, a lot of the album is pretty dark. Sunny Disposition, which is one of many standout tracks, has this apocalyptic horn section thrown into the mix. It has these really sinister guitar riffs, some pretty chaotic drumming from Brooks Wackerman. It all feels especially gloom and doom when you add M. Shadows' light and delicate vocal touch as he sings over those horns. It's just really creepy. Creating God is dark and menacing too. It's got this enveloping chorus where these ascending harmonized guitars respond to M. Shadows' climbing vocal melody. It all invokes this vision of in my head of these giant futuristic machines like launching upwards into space. But this isn't a friendly space exploration. This is like some vector terminal redux shit. Like some evil stuff is going on. But not all the songs are so ominous. This is actually a pretty eclectic record when you get down to it. Roman Sky is this tender, cinematic ballad. Higher has this soaring, uplifting atmosphere to it. And then, of course, the closer Exist has fucking everything under the sun 10 times over. From super noodly neoclassical guitars to quiet, intimate moments. It's just anything goes on that track. And that's the thing. The stage embodies to a T what makes Avenged Sevenfold such an incredible and such a unique band. And that's their experimentation. These guys will try anything. They'll incorporate any style. They'll throw an infinite number of curveballs at you. And they just do not give a shit about any musical conventions, which is what makes the stage such an exhilarating listen in the way that City of Evil and the White Album are. It's wildly ambitious. It's larger than life. Yet it's never overindulgent, and it never takes its eyes off the prize of great songs. I mean, out of fucking nowhere, they just threw full-on blast beats into the song For My Paradox. And these blast beats are paired not with aggression, but with this beautiful, serene, tremolo-picked guitar melody and M. Shadows' emotive, basically crooning. And later on, when this section instead turns into a light snare roll at about 4 minutes 30 seconds, I got chills. On For My Paradox, I also love the descending guitar line in the chorus. It's super catchy, especially when paired with those irresistible call and response vocals that are on top. And the track also has a real classy guitar solo from Sinister Gates, who his sense of melody and note placement on this album is literally better than it has ever been. There is not a single boring lick in any of his leads, and there's a lot of them. My absolute favorite track on the whole record might just be Higher. I gotta say, this song is the most immediate, probably, in terms of appeal on this album. A lot of these songs are growers, a lot of these songs are a little different, a little out there, but this would be a wise choice for a single. The chorus is just incredible. It feels like it's launching you into outer space, and it's joyous and blissful and awe-inspiring, and the backing vocals are so flawlessly orchestrated. And then in the verses in this song, Shadows reaches for some absurdly high notes, even by his standards, which I was really impressed with. Not to mention the main riff, which is real sugary and 80s inspired, and the outro to this song is like the perfect come down with those plucked electric guitars and the choir vocals and Brooks Wackerman noodling on the kit a little bit. I'd also like to shout out the title track for having some of my very favorite lyrics. I know we already kind of discussed lyrics, but lines like, "It took the birth of sin to snake rattle the mind, before a blow to the head by the gavel of time to wake up." These lyrics are so poetic and labored over. And then the line about, "When did the walking apes decide that nuclear war was the only solution?" It's just great, and that feels like a kind of almost a political statement, by the way. It's just so great to see as much put in to what's being said as to what's being played. That's rare for me in hard rock and heavy metal. In terms of negatives with this album, it's really hard for me to come up with anything concrete. Roman Sky, I mentioned, is this sweeping ballad, and it doesn't really move me, I guess, in the intense way that it's intended to, which is especially odd given my taste in music and my just love for sappy ass songs like that. And then there's Brooks's hi-hat on the song Exist. During that thrash gallop, it kind of sounds like it's like leaves being raked, and that's mildly irritating for a minute. Other than that, I got nothing. This album is everything I love about Avenged Sevenfold. It's everything I love about music. It's everything that excites me about hearing new music. To be completely honest, I was really skeptical of this album. I had no idea what kind of quality the band was going to deliver this time around. But what I got, a monumentally profound, adventurous, dynamic, and thought-provoking piece of work that over time could be mentioned with and even possibly overtake Waking the Fallen and City of Evil. Is everyone else going to feel that way? No. It's fucking Avenged Sevenfold. But this shit had me crying at how good it was. I would love to see Rob Flynn talk shit about this record. It brought me to a place where, at this point in my life, I never thought a new Avenged Sevenfold record would bring me. I'm absolutely blown away. The Stage gets a 9.5 out of 10 from me, probably just because I'm too chicken shit to slap the instant classic label on it. But as always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I will see you guys soon.